All right, we're back with episode 4 of the Butler Bonds podcast. We're going to get right into it tonight. So, last week we talked more about the exposure and recruiting process, as a whole, and kind of got into the weeds of the timeline of it and kind of what to expect as you move into high school and get close to ending high school. And I thought we did a pretty good job explaining that. And today it kind of sounds similar, but the name of this episode is called "Why the Recruiting Timeline is Broken." And what happens when families rush it. And today I kind of want to get into the weeds of like the thoughts of the players and the families based on the outside world and kind of what they're perceiving is kind of the recruitment process. And there's some things that they're right about, but there's also a lot of things that they're wrong about, and I just want to kind of clarify certain things and if they matter or if they don't matter in the process, right? Because there's so many little things that go into it, when you're getting recruited. So, do you have any first thoughts on that, and then we'll jump into it.
Yeah, there's a different timeline for everybody, you know. We played with guys that were getting looked at freshman year, and we've seen guys get committed as late as senior year. So it's you can't compare yourself to other people, right? It's your timeline. Just trust the process.
Yeah, and we're going to get into a couple stories at the end of three different people, two of them being me and you, are kind of timelines of it and how they were different, right? And then you just mentioned a good point because I have it in my notes is um, comparison culture is at an all-time high, meaning you see other people on their social media, you have more visibility than ever, and it's easy to compare yourself to other people, and not just with baseball, but I think that's a lot of wrong in today's world is like, we see the stuff on social media and we think, oh, I want to be there now, or these people got there with ease, I can do it, right? But you're just seeing the positive moments in their life, right? And that's the bad side of social media. But we'll jump into this. So we'll just we'll start this with, and I like to use this term, but I just think there's some overstimulation um, going on in today's world. Again, a lot of it stems through social media, but I feel like people have a pre-planned set goal in their head of how they want their recruitment process to go, and if it doesn't go their way 100%, it kind of throws them off track and they get frustrated, right? And we'll talk later on, but again, there's 100 different ways of how your recruitment process can go, and a lot of it involves where you're from, how your build is, how your makeup is, some god-given skill, just a lot of things, physicality, right? And everybody of course wants to be the freak that can commit early and not have to worry about a thing, and everything is kosher. You go through high school, you break records, and you go to the ACC, right? And unfortunately, that's not where most, not well, I say most, 99% of people are gonna be, right? So um let's just dive into that. What's your thought process on kind of like what should be the mindset of parents, obviously, and parents and players, but like obviously you want to shoot big and you want to have big goals, but like should they go more into this with an open mind and kind of a uh, you know, play it day by day. Just trust that you're doing the right things, and whatever happens, happens. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. I would say stick to your tools, right? The social media part is the big thing, the comparison culture for any part of life, right? You're looking at social media and you're seeing guys, whether you're a pitcher, a hitter, pitchers throwing 100, topping 100, players hitting it 450, right? And you want to do that, but that's not in your cards, right? You're comparing yourself against a 220, 6'5" kid that has power, but you're not seeing him swing and miss, right? They're not posting that on social media, and you get away from your game. You're a good contact hitter. Um, you know how to play the game. You know how to work the counts. Don't just stray away from your strong suits. Don't stray away from the tools that will get you to the next level, just to try and go to get exit velo, right? I've seen guys come in and they're only worried about their exit velo, right? And they're taking bad swings, they're pulling off balls. Um, that's just the social media comparison side of it, the culture. Um, I would say to trust the process, like you said, stick to what you were given, and then you can have development along the way and try to get more of whatever you're missing, right? To kind of pad those five tools. But don't just go out of your way and completely give up on what you've been given just to try and beat the next guy, the guy that was posted on social media or the guy that's getting looks at from ACC freshman year just because of his build, right?
Yeah, that's well said. And I think it's like a cycle that you're seeing. And it's like we've talked about this. It's really important in today's time to, pick the right organization and make sure they're trustworthy and they are in your best benefit, right? Because it's very business driven nowadays, right? A lot of organizations are competing against each other because one, they want to have the best players, and two, they want to be able to pay their bills and have a nice indoor facility and be able to pay the management and the coaches, right? It's, I'm not talking down on it because I am a coach and I believe that paying your coaches is an important thing, but it's a cycle. So like if the goal is, we want to attract kids to this organization, it's like, okay, so what's going to draw them to this organization? We're going to post our commitments, right? And probably our best commitments, right? And people are going to know about it. So, if a guy, a sophomore, junior, freshman, whoever, whatever, it doesn't even matter, commits to UVA, right? That's going to be that's going to be the post for a long time, months and months, right? That's going to be the talk. That's going to be, the publicity. That guy's going to be on every single post, every single mention, comment. So that kind of it feeds into, okay, everybody's seeing this all the time. Like, I want to be like that guy. The publicity is cool, right? Then it turns into, okay, well, I want to go to UVA now, right? And if you're not close to that level, then you're going to be disappointed, right? And kind of the work that's led up to you getting to the point you're at, which hopefully is good, and you've done what you can. You're going to shy away from that process, and you may do things that will throw you off track. And it may be going to places that you don't need to be going to because you're not ready. It may be putting stuff out there that, may not be beneficial to you. It can be a lot of things, right? Um, and so I think that's the start of the cycle, right? And then it leads to, oh well, I haven't heard from anybody. Like, I'm gonna panic. So I'm gonna create burnout. I'm going to, I'm gonna do stuff. I'm gonna hurt I'm gonna get injured because I have to throw 90 by the season, and the season's in 2 months, right? And that's just not science, right? It's not going to happen in that shorter bit of time, right? I'm going to start taking the enjoyment out of it, and I'm going to, right, I'm going to do stuff that I ideally, is not good for my development and not good for my body and my overall health and my long-term goals, right? So I think a lot of it starts with, you know, the expectation of that 1% is now the expectation of the 99%, right? Which is not realistic, right? Obviously, the percentages will show it. So, um, again, it's kind of that cycle that we're seeing. It's added pressure, and you can compare a lot of real life stuff with this too. The anxiety, the feeling of of wanting to feel wanted, and feeling like you deserve something because somebody else got it, right? And it's not fair, right? And we'll go over a couple stories in a minute. Life's not fair. The baseball recruiting aspect of everything is not fair, right? Sometimes you have to go a route that maybe, when you were sixth, seventh, eighth grade, or maybe your parents have, you see this a lot too. Parents are pushing more than players. And, I do like that when parents are involved and that when they push their kids, but if you're telling them stuff behind the scenes and you're taking them places and you're doing things to make them think they're going to get drafted senior year, right? And they're maybe not even on a JUCO level yet. Eventually, that's going to cause major problems, right? So I know I just rambled there a little bit, but it's that cycle, and you know what I mean by that kind of that cycle that you're seeing, players and parents go through nowadays.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of the enjoyment is being taken out of the game now because of that comparison, because of trying to be the top dog, having all the publicity, go D1, get drafted, right? But that's not the name of the game, and we're here to give advice to everybody, but we're not here really for the 1%, right? We're trying to help the 99%
Right,
see that there's still a path, right? There's
right,
still a way for everybody to get there. The 1%, they're they're fine, right? They have the
right,
skills, they have the knowledge, they're going to get there. But
right.
we still want you to enjoy the process,
Hmm.
stick to your game, develop along the way, and still hit your goals. That doesn't have to be right out of high school, but there's long journeys that can get there that we're going to get into, right?
Yeah, and it all comes down to that's why having people that know what they're doing in your pocket's important because it all comes down to the realism of where you're at, right? Like, again, if you're using social media to help yourself, that's a good thing, right? If I'm seeing people post, tag colleges, right? The access to coaches' information is easier to get than ever, right? So like, you can do all this, right? But you also have to know, like, if I'm gonna email and text and tag and call and go to 10 camps to UVA, right? Am I in that realm to where like they're saying, this may be a chance, right? I like to see him a couple more times, or are they going, this kid's just annoying me, like he's nowhere near it, and they don't have time to go over that whole thing with you, right? But like there's that realism of like, okay, like where are you at, whether it's your parents, you, or coaches, or somebody needs to tell you, and then based on where you're at now, use that, right, to create leverage for yourself, right? It can be your local JUCO, right? And it doesn't mean that you can't develop to get to a place that you dream of getting, right? But like, don't hurt yourself more than you help yourself based on your unrealistic expectations of the player you are or that you're gonna be, right? So and
Yeah,
that's and
we
then again, and then with everything that kids see and parents see, I feel like the expectation and the realism are growing farther and farther away, right? Like before, like even when we played, it's like we were pretty kind of certain of where we probably were going to play, and like there wasn't this, my kid's going to go play at Vanderbilt, and if you weren't even close, like people wouldn't say that. But now I'm hearing it a little bit, I'm seeing it a little bit, right? So again, I'm all for everything, the resources to help you, right? But stick to the plan, right? Know where you're at, get with the right people, continue to do the right things day by day in regards to development and everything else that we've talked about previously, right? And be patient, right? Just because colleges don't reach out to you, or they're silent, or you don't get an email back, or right, they didn't talk to you after a camp, or your friend, they brought up your friend but not you, stick to the process.
Yeah, we talked about it last episode, right? Use all the resources you can. Use social media to its fullest, right? If you want to have dreams, if you want to tag Vanderbilt, if you want to send UVA an email, do that. But Roanoke, Randolph Macon, and Hampton Sydney also need to be on that email, right?
Yes.
Take
Don't burn bridges.
all take all your opportunities. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, the good
Coaches
thing
coaches
about,
talk too. I mean,
yeah,
if there's a lot of D3 or JUCO guys talking about this kid, there's gonna be some D1s,
right.
D2s turning their heads like, why are all these colleges looking at this guy, right? Don't
Yeah,
burn
we
bridges.
we've talked about too, like, and I know this kind of contradicts what we just said, but like I think the D1 or bust mindset's kind of going out of the picture, not because people still don't have egos, but it's more of the transfer portal, and they're starting to like see it, right? Like back in the day, even like when I say back in the day, we're getting old, but like when we were being recruited, you heard a little bit more D1 or bust because one, it was harder to get to D1 once you went D3 or whatever it was, right? And the freshman classes were bigger, right? So like the walk-ons were more popular, whether it be preferred or having to go win a spot in the fall, right? So like people were shooting for that more than the money because they were like, hey, just get me there and I'll try to figure it out. Now it's a whole different story with the scholarships and the money and the transfer portal. So like in that aspect, I think the transfer portal kind of puts, D2, D3, JUCO more like in the spotlight, and which is making their divisions and conferences way better than it was before. That gap is shrinking. Um, so yeah, it's crazy, and I think we explained it well. That's kind of what I wanted to get out on that is like that's why I feel like the recruiting timeline is broken is because the expectations are not where they should be, just because of the publicity people are seeing because of what's needed to draw good players to organizations, what people want to see, the views, the likes, just getting people in the doors to, to help the business side of it is, and again, not shaming the business side, but, you know, still have realistic expectations.
Yeah, that's very well put, and that goes for any aspect in life, right? Just
Yep.
stick to what you got, work on your weaknesses, and comparison will kill you.
So I wanted to go to end this, with three different paths. I'll let you start on yours, and then I'll kind of go over mine and my friends. But I want to show, um, that even though 10 years ago it was a little bit different, it's still the same. There's not one way to get to the destination you're looking at, right? And it's not, it isn't linear. There's a bunch of different ways. So let's just start out by you kind of, and don't, we won't get super in the weeds of it, just kind of short and abbreviated of how you got to college and how you navigated to get to the end where you were at.
Yeah, we've talked about it before, but in high school, um, sophomore, junior year, I had maybe one or two D1s reach out very briefly, come to a few games, completely ghost me, right? So from the early on, I was pretty realistic with myself, and I knew that D1 probably was not my first destination. I didn't completely rule it out though. And mid senior year, I started to see some interest from some D3s. I was still wishy-washy on whether I was going to go to college just for school or go play D3. And I love the game so much. I was like, I'm going D3. I'm going to play. Right. Even then, even freshman year, sophomore year, I wasn't the standout. Everybody's the same in college, right? You're the stud on your high school team. You think you can go D3, you think you can play, you can start freshman year. That's what the coaches tell you. Everybody's the same there, right? From there, for my 4 years at D3, development was a big thing. Working on my own was a big thing. Um, Even when I got there, I think it was kind of the mindset of when you played, if you go D3, you're stuck. You're not getting out of here,
Yeah.
right? I heard that multiple times from multiple people. Didn't matter how good you were. I played with a lot of guys from D3 that went to the next level from D3, but that was very rare, right? They were the talk of everything. Um, and then the transfer portal kind of got a little bigger after COVID. Um, I ended up having two very good years, my junior and senior year there. I had an extra year, and I said, you know what, I'm going to try and see if I can go play D1 somewhere else. And then, like we talked about last episode, I used all my resources, got videos out, got emails out, ended up getting an opportunity at D1. Still wasn't very hopeful with playing, but I wanted to go test that out, try that out, see the different culture, right? And it is a big culture change. Um, Ended up working my butt off at in the fall at Radford and ended up earning a starting position playing D1. But if you would have told me that in high school, I would have not told you that I would play D1. right?
Right.
So never rule it out, right? It's
Right.
always in the picture. Trust the process. You can move up any level, right? High school to JUCO, high school D3, D2, and continue up the chain.
Right. Yeah, it was a good story, and like I'll start with mine with saying like I think that you were fringe Division 1 coming out of high school, which a lot of kids are, meaning like they got to get lucky and perform in the right spot or find a team that is looking for your type of fit, and
It's a good point.
it just proves that it doesn't always happen. Even if you're D1 caliber, sometimes you just wrong place, wrong time, or you get
Teams don't have
unlucky,
spots, right?
right? And then the crazy thing about it is, on in my story, it's the opposite, right? I was I was way less projectable than you in regards to tools coming out of high school, right? I was 5'9" on my best day, didn't have a good body, didn't really have tools, right? I was just kind of what they call a gamer, right? I mean, you can attest to this. I had good hands, and my my plus tool out of anything was my hitting, right? I was just a good bat to ball guy. But, all my friends were pretty much like you, or even more, to where like they were getting committed because they were ready, right? And it's not that I was behind them physically. I just really kind of was kind of the runt in the group, right? Like, this kind of sparky, just kind of gritty guy, but like, does it translate? And I heard a lot of no's, right? Whether it was from coaches or, even friends. Uh, College coaches, right? And I just like everybody else, I heard a lot of silence. Luckily, since I played on a good high school team, I was able to play on a good showcase team, and I'm a prime example of me needing a showcase team that was going to elevate me, and being on a good showcase team, right? And still, I mean, I had decent seasons in showcase, but couldn't really hit for power. Like, would run into a double every now and it was just kind of dwindling down. And I was accepting going to a JUCO Division 3. Right now, I wanted to play Division 1. I think the only reason that this really happened was because I was kind of crazy about it in regards to like I had a false sense of hope. But like my play like kind of drew people's eyes by the way I just was just energetic and crazy. So went to a Radford camp in August. I had heard maybe they kind of like, again, Joe Rakuya was kind of like me, like he played like me and like he liked players like me, which is spunky. And he had told Banks that he couldn't take his eye off me the way I was doing stuff. Whatever, nothing serious though. And I went there, went 7 for 7. I've told the story many times, right? Was a home run away from the cycle. Just one of those things to where like the coaches, and it's funny because AG can attest to this. The current coach there now, he was the assistant coach, and he told me this later on. He's like, "Look, I get it. The dude went 7 for 7. It'd be hypocritical not to take him," and that's what Joe said. But like, you can't seriously take this kid, right? He doesn't look like a college player. He's not really athletic. He's tight, right? Yeah, he can hit, but doesn't translate, right? Basically, Joe felt so bad that he basically said, "I have to take you because." If you're going to come and do this and you're going to play high level ball, like I'm going to take you. It's a preferred walk on. So that's the opposite side of like, did I really deserve that? No. And I tell people all the time, if I was playing today, I would have gone the normal route of JUCO, right? And which would have been fine, to be honest, right? I think a lot of I respect a lot of JUCO and lower level players, or lower level divisions, I should say. Um, and then I got to Radford, and after the first year, they were right. I wasn't ready, right? I just was not mature, and I got better in little things, but I wasn't ready. I got cut, right? Went the whole summer trying to find a team. Ended up on Christopher Newport's team, or was about to be. I had to get some enrollment stuff done for the school. Joe calls me back and says, "Look, I really didn't think I was going to do this, but one of our guys got hurt. We can't bring anybody in at this point, so." If you want to come back and try it one more year, you can. Nothing's guaranteed. I didn't even have a guaranteed spot for the spring, right? And then I figured my shit out and grew up, and it worked out. Ended up being, two-time all conference, nominee of all decade, won couple conference tournaments, right? That's cool, right? I was able to figure it out, and I had good help along the way. But it just shows you, right? If you get a chance, and maybe a lot of kids might think too, I don't deserve it, right? Or you may not feel like you know your confidence is there to compete, right? Never give up because you never know the situation, right? So that's kind of my story there, and then I want to go over. I know we're kind of pushing on time, but a complete opposite of me and you, right? We were kind of similar, but the past went different ways, right? This one was complete opposite, and you still see this. I think today more than ever because of the portal. The portal just enhances all this stuff, right? So accept my way, right? In today's time, they'd be like, no, like I don't even I don't, it's not worth my time, right, to develop this kid, right? So my best friend, Kyle McPherson, played at Western Branch, was the opposite. He was a physical freak. Could hit home runs with a wood bat as a freshman, threw 90 miles an hour, hands, ran a 6'5", probably, I don't know if it was 6'5", but somewhere close to that before he even started lifting weights, right? We've seen it, boom, ACC, SEC, every school you can think of jumps on them. They're trying to snag them, right? You know how that they put pressure on you. You get a week, you get 2 weeks. Uh, you can't talk to other school, whatever it may be. They put the pressure on you. So he commits to Georgia Tech before going into his 10th grade year. Um, and he didn't do this, right? But a lot of kids think, oh, I'm good, right? I'm committed. Not that they don't work hard, but there's just that mindset where like I'm not committed. Like there's an urgency. Maybe that goes away a little bit, right? And in his instant, he got hurt a little bit, right? They're still tracking, they're still talking, they're still showing up sometimes to high school games and showcase games. They know, right? You might not think they do. They're also looking at other players. Like if they run into a guy that might be better than you, they're like, ooh, right? I like this guy, but I like this guy too, right? So there's still urgency there. He gets his scholarship pulled his senior year, right? So he went from freshman year, 3.5 years, to not being looked at because he was committed, right? So boom, they drop him, panic mode, right? Luckily, most kids that commit to an ACC school as a freshman, they might not get another ACC school, but he was able to land JMU. It worked out for him. He got to play. He may not have played it at Georgia Tech at the beginning, and he went on to get drafted, right? But it just shows you there's no linear way. There's a bunch of different ways, right? Don't panic if you see your best friend, like in my case, commit. I love the kid, so I was happy for him. But there were times where I was like, man, I wish that was me too, right? Like I wish that's awesome, right? So let's before we wrap up, what do you think out of these three would you want, right? If let's just say going back what you know now personally, what would you want, and what do you think makes the best player in the long run? Um, the route. It doesn't have to be this necessarily these certain routes, but what route do you think in 2026 makes the best player and the best person?
All right, so there's two different questions there. Personally, I would like to be that the guy, right? I would like to go tour some ACC, SEC schools in high school,
Yeah,
right? That seems pretty cool, right? But obviously, it doesn't work out always. Um, I never got to play at a big school like that with a big stadium. So I think that would be a cool experience to have. And knowing what I know now, the recruiting process isn't over, right? I would
yeah,
be working 10 times harder
yeah,
to stay on that team. I think the best way to continue to progress and get where you want to go um, is to find a role at a school that you can fill, that you can play, and then you can develop,
yeah,
right? In your instance, there's plenty of instances of guys who go and sit the bench at a high level that is kind of out of their league, and they kind of dwindle down. They don't have the drive that you did, right, to continue to work, and that's also something that we didn't really mention in our journeys is the points in between that you don't see the grind, right, the
yeah,
development. Um, but I think that going super early, getting the experience, getting the development is a lot more important than where you're going just to post it,
yeah.
right? that's kind of where my instincts comes from, and Alex Marcus, that because we didn't really go to a big D1 school, right? We went to a mid major, a very good school. But another instance is I played with a kid that ended up at UVA from D3, right? So you can continue to move up the links.
Yep.
Roanoke, he went to William and Mary and then went to UVA. So I think
Yep.
that is the most optimal way to develop and grow in your skills that you were given.
Right. Yeah, I think the right answer to this is like how are you wired, right? Like if I was wired the same as I was at 5'9", 160 pounds with no tools, and I was a five tool player and I had the same mindset, obviously, yeah, I would love to go, play at a power five. And like this is not to shame guys that because I know a lot of guys and I think most guys that get to go to a power five that are just freaks. I think most of them are at the mindset of like they want to get better. They want to play in the big leagues, right? So
Right,
like I don't
right.
think there's much going
No.
on of like, oh, I'm a power five guy. I'm good. Like,
Hmm.
even if I go there and it's still in a great experience. I don't think that occurs that much, right? But if I had my mindset, yeah, I would have loved to be, bigger, stronger, faster, earlier, and I could have probably contributed some of that, personally. I'm not saying, I'm not blaming my God given ability, but um, at the same time, I think the best route for me would have been almost going your route. Now, again, I may not have ever got to play Division 1, right? And I mean, I've told this too. Like, the only reason I even played was one of my other best friends broke his leg. That was the only reason, right? And like we laugh about it to this day, and it was a horrible injury, and I think it kind of affected him the rest of his career too. But I tell him all the time, like, you're the only reason that I even can speak on knowing things that I know and experiencing things that I did and getting some accolades and actually becoming a good player, right? I would have never known, right? But I think I was at a Division 1, so the development was really good. But I think going to a Roanoke or Christopher Newport or something, and maybe getting to play a couple years, maybe I would have got better that way. And you never know. I could have maybe gone something beyond the mid major. You never know, right? I'm just kind of guessing on it, but and at the end of the day, everybody's path is different, and a lot of it comes down to mindset and what you're willing to do, right? To you know take your situation, make the most of it, right, and just maximize it. If your maximized situation is playing JUCO for 2 years and you got the most out of that and that's what you could get, you had a successful career, right? If your maximize is going to play in the big leagues and you're a Hall of Famer in the big leagues, you made the most of it, right? You just want to make sure that you make the most of what you were given, what you can strive for, what you can max out, not only physically but mentally, right?
Yeah, I don't want to knock anybody's optimism, right? Obviously, we had the drive to prove other people wrong, right? We just kind of want to fill that gap between the expectation and reality just a little bit more.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. But yeah, we'll end it there. We'll try to jump away from kind of the showcase stuff for a little bit. We'll try to mix up the topics and we'll go from there. See you next time.